In this lesson, we'll begin to build the deck of the skateboard by using some splines and NURBS curves. So, to start with, we want to build kind of the profile or the outline of the skateboard from the top view. So it's kind of a rectangular shape with some round ends. Now if we go ahead and in our Create panel, we go to Shapes and let's choose NURBS curves. We have two options here, Point Curve and CV Curve. This will allow us to draw out curves into the viewport. But if we want to get more of a pre-existing shape, like a circle for instance, we can go to Splines and actually convert these to NURBS. So in this case, we'll go ahead and take our spline, spline circle, and let's go ahead and draw this out into our viewport. And maybe something like that. And go ahead and make sure that that is kind of snapped to the origin there. And it can be, we'll put it off to the side just a little bit. And now we want to actually convert this into a NURBS circle. So the first thing that I'm going to do is convert this to an editable spline to do some editing on this. And then we'll take the segments. Now I want to keep the back end of this circle. This is the important part for us. And I want to make sure to have enough resolution in here. So I'm going to take both of these segments, just select both of these segments, and we're going to go down, all the way down under the geometry rollout. It's going to be close to the bottom here. And we're going to divide. And let's add some divisions to this. And let's just add 3 divisions. So it's going to add these new points in here. Alright, so we want this to be nice and flat. We're going to end up bending the top, or the outside of the circle rather, up a little bit. So we want to have a nice straight edge across here and then geometry between. So to accomplish this, I'm going to go ahead and take this vertex, delete it, and then I'm going to select both of these and let's right click on them and let's choose to make those corner vertices. That will create a nice sharp line there. Now right now, you can see if I select this, it's all one spline. If we think about this, the structure of a NURBS is going to be more like a square shape, a patch. So if you've got something like this that really has these 2 sides, you want to break this long side up so that we end up having something with 4 sides, even though this will visually look like it's a nice clean curve. So in this case, I'll choose to maybe select these and have these segments be the sides of that circle, and then we can have the top and bottom. So you're kind of defining a 4-sided patch there by cutting this apart. Now we'll go down here right under divide and we'll choose to detach, and I'm going to choose to make this part of the same shape. So I'm not going to create a new shape out of this. So we'll go ahead and detach, and visually nothing happens, but if we go ahead now and select spline, you can see that instead of selecting the entire spline, I'm selecting these different pieces. Okay, so now we're ready to convert this into a NURBS surface. So go ahead and select the editable spline, right click on it, convert to NURBS. Okay? Now you're going to have under the general rollout, you're going to have a little box, or NURBS creation toolbox. Okay? If you click this on, it'll bring up this little window, and having that on, you will be able to come in with your NURBS, create a new NURBS, and this will come up automatically. Okay? This will allow you to create a lot of different types of surfaces, curves, and points. And you also have options for doing that at the top level, going down here to create points, curves, and surfaces rollout. You have a lot of those options too, or you can utilize the little NURBS creation toolbox. So right now we only have curves here. So what we want to do is actually define a surface for this. The first thing I want to do before that is to make sure that everything is rebuilt so that it has the correct number of points. So we want this and this to have the same number of points because we're going to be creating geometry between them. So again, think of this as kind of a 4-sided piece of geometry. So to rebuild our geometry, which means we will change the number of points along there, we'll select the curve and let's go all the way down to rebuild. Here we'll bring up a little window and we can choose to change the number. So I can change that number and let's go down to 8. Say OK to that. And then we'll rebuild this line here to 8 as well. Alright, and you can rebuild these if you want to change that. I think those are fine. So we now need to create our geometry, and let's turn on smooth and highlight so we can see the geometry. And we've got 4 sides here, so there are a few different ways that we can create geometry. One of the ways is to create a multi-sided blend surface. So for this we'll go ahead and select our top level, and from the NURBS creation toolbox we will select multi-sided blend surface. We'll go ahead and activate that. And then we'll select our curves. You can see they highlight as we move over those. It turns into a little plus sign. And we'll select them from here. And I'm just going to go in a clockwise manner all the way around until you can see that there is our surface. I'll just right click to get out of there. And before I leave, I'm going to go ahead and choose the flip normals so that we can see that piece of geometry there. Okay. So that gives us some geometry that is dependent on the curves that we have. So you can see there's no option for accessing any of the surface CVs, and that's because this surface is still a dependent surface based on these curves. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is actually get this over to the other side of the origin. So if I just kind of move this over, what I want to do is mirror this over. So I'm going to use the working pivot. Okay, so under hierarchy, turn on the working pivot, and that's just going to make us a temporary pivot here at the origin. Okay, and then I'll just use mirror, and let's mirror that in the X, and let's create a copy. All right, turn off the working pivot, and now I'm going to go to one of these, and let's make this part of the same NURBS surface by going to attach. And now that's part of a single surface here. All right, the next thing we want to do is create the geometry between these pieces. Okay, so we have curves here that we can use. If we want to do that, we can use the surfaces. Let's go ahead and choose to make these surfaces independent. We can click that button right here under Convert Surface on both of these. Then now they no longer have a relationship to those curves. Let's go ahead and make sure that our NURBS Creation Toolbox is opened up again. And in this case, I want to create a ruled surface. So I'll activate that. Click on the line right here at the base of this, and then right over here, and let's flip those normals. Right click and we'll get out of that. So at this point, we can again grab this surface, make it independent. Now we can look at the surface CVs. You can see those CVs there. If we now select this surface, and let's go down to Rebuild, and I want to add some lines here in the V direction. So I'll go ahead and up that number to maybe something like that. I want to give it some a nice bit of resolution there. So maybe let's go to 12. And say OK to that. So we now have three separate surfaces that we need to combine. So let's go ahead and with surface selected, we'll choose to join those. And I'm going to click from here and drag over to the middle. I'm going to use zip with these settings, and that's going to join those together. You can see we still have a nice straight line there. All right, and let's go ahead and join from here to here. Click OK. Let's go ahead and go to our perspective and take a look at this. You can see that we now have a single surface. It's a nice rectangle shape with circle shapes on the end. And if I select that surface, you can see I can kind of pull that up, and there's our surface CVs that we're able to manipulate. And it's important that we do have this straight line here because we're going to want to make a nice clean bend in that geometry. Okay, so now that we've got the basic shape of the deck of the skateboard built out using some NURBS curves and surfaces, let's go ahead in the next lesson and start to add some thickness to the deck, and we'll also talk about adding that shape of the bend on the end rather. So we'll go ahead and do both of those things in the next lesson.